right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. Let's dive into the top headline of the day as day 11 of the search for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie continues on. And it's been a whirlwind, a bizarre 24 hours since the FBI released those images from the doorbell camera outside the home on the early morning hours of that Sunday as their authorities began that search. And obviously plenty to get to in terms of this. A live look outside of the home. The FBI canvassing the area. They did come across a black glove that they were potentially looking for any evidence that was thrown out of a vehicle or some sort of device there on their way out of that area. Let's continue on, bringing two experts here with the program. Here, Randy Sutton, retired police lieutenant, and LA Mag reporter Lauren Conlin. Thank you guys for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And Randy, let me start with you because it's been a bizarre 24 hours right now, but that black glove that was found on the road in a brush, how big of a piece of evidence? Are they swabbing that for DNA right now?
Oh, absolutely they are. But how legitimate a piece of evidence is it? That remains to be seen. Remember, they're picking up everything that might have been tossed out of a window of a vehicle. So they're going to be picking up a lot of stuff that probably didn't have anything to do with anything. So a glove, does it resemble what was seen on the video camera? If that's the case, then there's a good possibility it is related, and then it will be a very valuable piece of evidence. But it remains to be seen. And then, of course, the forensic analysis of it is critically important.
Yeah, very, very important to see that happening. Lauren, I do want to get your take on it because that piece of evidence, obviously they have to tie it to it, but this individual in that FBI surveillance was wearing black gloves, was wearing a ski mask, long sleeves, and a backpack. In terms of that, what can authorities do when getting some sort of piece of evidence? Because yesterday we received some 4,000 tips after the surveillance video was released.
I saw that. The tip line is buzzing, which is good. You know, as Randy said, I'm sure that glove is going through many, many layers of forensics. But listen, I got to wonder here, did they actually find that glove today? And if so, why did it take so long to find a glove that was reportedly nearby Nancy Guthrie's house? Because I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not super normal for a single black glove to be laying, you know, in a field, on a street in Arizona. It is hot in Arizona. And that goes back to the suspect who is seen wearing many layers, gloves, a hat. I mean, he's got to be sweating, or he had to have been sweating. So I'm also thinking possibly there's some DNA left there. Now, the problem is the police didn't exactly secure that crime scene. So we're going to have a lot of DNA. A lot has been contaminated here. But I think at this point, many of us who are reporting on this, you know, from afar, and we are trying to get information from people on the ground, it's become very convoluted, Andy, very convoluted with the amount of streamers, YouTubers that have kind of jumped in there, and it's tough. It's tough to navigate.
Yeah, that is so very true. Randy, I want to ask you, because we had another piece of evidence this morning, TMZ receiving an email saying somebody has information that could lead to the kidnapper. They didn't go to the FBI. They went to TMZ with this email. Yesterday when we talked, just yesterday, talking about a potential hoax with some of these ransom letters, how do they verify the authenticity of this? They do have an email now that potentially could have information. What do we make of what happened today with TMZ and that new letter?
Well, remember now, this is the third piece of correspondence that we know of revolving around this. Now, one of the bizarre things regarding one of these communications is that they said that they weren't the kidnapper, but they knew who the kidnapper was and demanded basically a reward for it, a Bitcoin. Valued at about $70,000 or so, to give the information. Now, this is getting more bizarre every single day. I don't believe any of these communications are real, and yet they still have to be investigated, draining more and more manpower from the investigation. But I think once again, it's another red herring.
Yeah, and obviously concern about the authenticity of it, if it's another hoax, if the FBI after law enforcement have to go out after another individual there. And we did hear yesterday that there was potentially money put into the original Bitcoin account right now. Is the law enforcement, how much are they focusing on these Bitcoin account wallets? Because there are so many different things to do. Should they prioritize that? Lauren, do you think so?
I think at this point that shouldn't be prioritized. I think that that is a second tier investigation because I mean, I said this a couple of days ago. It's looking like these are two separate cases somehow. You know, you have to think back that the first ransom email didn't come in for 2 days after Nancy was abducted. I feel like somebody wanted to sort of take advantage there and just sort of jump in on this opportunity, as diabolical as that sounds. And so now I also go back to the fact that these emails were allegedly meticulous. Clearly, we are seeing dropped evidence. We are seeing a perp who is trying to cover up a doorbell camera with flowers. This does not seem meticulous. So, again, I go back to the fact that we are dealing with most likely two separate investigations, and all the focus should be on Nancy Guthrie at this point. I want to be sensitive about it. She is 84 years old. She hasn't had her medication, and she needs to come home. It's imperative that she comes home. The window has passed here, and yes, all eyes should be focused on that.
Yeah, and obviously they're working around the clock right now to make that happen. And it feels like they could be closer than ever to kind of having leads on this. Randy, I want to ask you about what happened last night near Rio Rico, near the U.S.-Mexico border, where they did detain an individual that potentially delivered a package. We're hearing new reports right now. We're hearing media speak to this individual. What types of questions would law enforcement ask about an individual? Maybe not a suspect or a person of interest, but someone that they detain. What questions would they ask?
Well, they detained him. Not only did they detain him, they did a warrant at his house. So he wasn't a random person that was picked up. They had clearly gotten a tip, probably, one of the many, the thousands that are coming through. And they looked at this individual, and probably they looked at his description and made some other determinations, because if they got a search warrant, it means they had to have probable cause to do that. And so I don't know what that was, but it would be interesting to see the warrant, whatever brought that up. So, there will be, collateral issues that come about as in a wide scale investigation like this. This is, we're looking for a suspect based on, the description that we saw, and also, the minor areas of visual, the face that we saw. So um, I'm just happy that this individual was cleared quickly and returned to his home.
Yeah, and we heard him speak. We also heard a family member speak, and he said, telling Fox News' Matt Finn, that they believed his eyes looked similar to what the FBI had in that surveillance camera. Lauren, what do they hope to garner for information, even if not from a suspect? Does that mean that they're closer to potentially finding a potential abductor?
Andy, at this point, I'm not going to hold out hope, although I would love to. But I think the issue is here, or one of the issues I should say, is there is so much public interest in this case, and there are so many people on the ground, people that really don't necessarily belong there. So I'm not sure if the FBI and if law enforcement feels the need to put on more of a quote unquote show than normal. I mean, I'm thinking back to last night. I felt like we were experiencing some kind of OJ Simpson car chase when the SWAT cars were out, all to track down this driver. And again, we are not completely sure as to why they tracked him down. I mean, we know what he has said. He was tracked down, based on possibly delivering a package to Nancy Guthrie's house. He was tracked down, he said, based on this image. I mean, obviously there's got to be a lot more here, but I have to say that, perhaps some of the sleuths and some of the reporting out there maybe should stand back a little bit and let the police do their job. But at this point, I am starting to get very, very frustrated. I'm sure Many people are, and I can't imagine being the Guthrie family. I cannot imagine.
Yeah, and obviously there's so many media members around this Catalina Foothills neighborhood as even this search continues to grow, and they're canvassing, recanvassing different parts of this area. They also appear to be going back near Annie Guthrie's house quite a bit, as Nancy Guthrie was at that home on Saturday night before returning home. Randy, why are they so focused potentially on this location that Nancy Guthrie wasn't potentially taken from?
Well, that's a great question. I'd like to know the answer myself, but clearly there's been a lot of attention paid here. And when we do find out, I think it's going to be very interesting. One of the things that I'd like to know is they've been in the house several times. They've brought property out. They've been in both the residences of the victim and the daughter, the daughter and son-in-law. So there's a lot at play, and this mystery still continues to deepen.
Yeah, and obviously we're looking live there at Annie Guthrie's house and Nancy Guthrie's house. They're not too far apart, but some developments today. Lauren, my last question before I let you guys go, because this obviously continues to be a bizarre twist and turn kind of saga with what happened yesterday, the FBI. And I just continue to repoint to what we saw in some of those benchmark moments of this case, and to potentially talking about law enforcement. What comes next? What else are they looking for? What else are you thinking right now?
Well, as you mentioned, they have spent a significant amount of time back at Annie Guthrie's house just this afternoon. I think they arrived back there around 4 o'clock, and I saw that they left with a box. They somehow checked the mailbox as well. So they are still scouring for clues, scouring for evidence, anything and anyone that had or made connection with Nancy Guthrie the day that she went missing and the days before she went missing, as well as canvassing the entire area. And I go back to thinking that I do feel in a way that we all got duped initially. And we may, and I say we, I guess I mean everybody here, law enforcement included, although it's important to note that they don't tell us everything. They don't owe us anything, and they might be further ahead than we actually know. But I feel like we got duped a little bit because of those ransom emails. And then I go back to really wanting those guys to be prosecuted, because that's also obstruction. There's so many charges that could fit here, and in addition to it just being emotional torture and just completely a diabolical act, a diabolical thing to do to the Guthrie family.
Yeah, so very true. Obviously getting in the way potentially of the return of this 84-year-old woman. My last question, Lauren, before I let you go, what's happened over the last 24 hours, does it feel like we're closer than ever for law enforcement to have their person that have found this individual or individuals?
Unfortunately, it doesn't. I was very hopeful last night when I saw this big chase, and I was disappointed. I really was. And this is clearly not about me, and I feel odd even saying that, because I cannot imagine being the Guthrie family. But no, Andy, unfortunately, at this point, it actually feels like we are not close, and we've actually taken a few steps back, especially if we're just finding evidence now in a dirt road nearby Nancy's house. I mean, we're finding this now, and again, maybe we'll get to a conclusion, and perhaps we will find Nancy sooner than later. But this should have been done sooner, because the clock is ticking for this poor 84-year-old woman.
You can only imagine how many cars have come and gone along that road, media members, residents, in the last 11 days. So they're still picking it up. We'll see what leads to it. But it was a busy day yesterday. We'll see what transpires today. Lauren, Conlin, thank you so much. I appreciate your time here on Live Now.